Welcome to Ali Fitness Podcast, a weekly production all about bringing health into fitness. A recent article in a newspaper in Australia summed up Atkins' current abilities by saying left-footed wingman Atkins left Adelaide in the game early by kicking its first 2 goals. Atkins, the number 81 draft pick in 2012, who was one of only 7 Crows to play all 24 games for the club last year. He appears to have taken the next step in his development after producing a standout display against the Cats. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about AFL. It appears that it wasn't without injury and a lot of hard work that Rory Atkins joined what is this year's top AFL team so far on the leaderboard. And today we're fortunate to have Rory on the podcast. Welcome, Rory.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So firstly, although this is a bit embarrassing and sad to say, there may be a few listeners who are not familiar with AFL. They maybe not from Australia or just, have been living under a rock. And they don't even realise how important of a sport it is in Australia. They don't know that newspapers in Australia are compiled mostly of weekend sports results, which a lot of that is dedicated to AFL. And they don't even know that in Australia, you're forgiven if you don't know who the Prime Minister is, but as long as you know who the top AFL players are. So, Rory, how would you briefly describe what AFL is?
Yeah, that's right. Not too many people that don't live in Australia are familiar with the game of AFL. It seems if you run into someone overseas that is familiar with the game, they have some ex-Australian ties, so that's the only way they know about it. The way I like to explain it to some people that aren't too familiar with it is a mix of rugby, soccer, and a few similar skills to the game of basketball. Yeah, it's a mix of all of it. We play on an oval ground. Set of goals at either end. Yeah, you kick it through the goals, you get 6 points, and if you miss to the side, you get 1. So I think that's a pretty quick, brief discussion. We play a 4-quarter game of 25-minute quarters. Yeah, the games go for about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
And some describe it as aerial ping pong, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. It's quite a fast game. I mean, the ball goes up and down the field like a game of basketball, but you can also tackle, and it's quite physical.
So tell us about how you got into AFL and what was your journey to getting into the big league?
So growing up, like most kids, I played every sport that you could do. I played tennis, basketball, AFL, soccer, but it got to a stage where I tended to favour basketball and AFL. You go through all your pathways. Growing up as a kid, I had to make the decision to whether I wanted to pursue football or basketball because the commitments for both of them with training and travel got too hard. I did prefer basketball at that stage when I was 16, but I thought only a select few make it to the top level there in the NBA. I thought my percentages lied with making the top competition in the AFL, and I was lucky enough to do that.
Well, when you say lucky enough, I guess it wasn't all luck. How did you go about that? I mean, obviously there was a lot of competition in AFL as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's obviously our major sport here in Australia. So growing up, most kids play the sport of AFL. So it got to the stage where I was 16 and that's when it starts to get serious. You are, as opposed to go playing with your friends, you break off into representative teams. You play for your state. To get into the competition, you get drafted as an 18-year-old. You can't be any younger than that. So from the ages of 16 onwards till you're 18, that's when it starts to get pretty serious. The AFL club recruiters and list managers come out and watch you from a very young age to see whether they want you at their football club and whether they like what you have to offer.
And so during the age of, say, 16 to 18, were you conscious of being viewed on several occasions, or how did that work? And at what age did you know that you were going to be selected?
Not too many people know each year that they're going to be selected, but some kids at that stage have a rough idea. I mean, through the process, say recruiters from the club come around to your house and they want to meet you and work out what type of person you are and what type of family you come from, and they want to meet mum and dad and your family members. Well, I had a rough idea that I was a good chance to get drafted. Some people miss out. Yeah, I was very fortunate to the opportunity. So that was 5 years ago now. So it seems like a long time ago. No, I can remember those years quite vividly.
It's interesting, isn't it? So it's not just based on your performance and your fitness level and that sort of thing. They're actually sort of delve into your family life as well.
Yeah, that's right. Because the industry right now at the moment is so fickle. I mean, they don't want any people who they think are going to be a liability to the club, because they get these companies that come on board and their sponsorships are worth millions of dollars. So if they have someone on their list that they think may not uphold, or they think carries on a bit, they ultimately, at the end of the day, if someone's to mess up, it could end up losing one of these sponsorships. So they need to make sure. I know at our football club, one of the things they tick off is that they've got to be a good person. So we want good people at our football club. I know that's one thing that they try to tick off before they get someone into our club.
So are you a good person then?
Yeah, I tend to think so. I tend to try treat people the way I want to be treated.
Excellent. So, Rory, in 2015, you injured your knee. Did you think that maybe your career hadn't really begun at this stage and was potentially over?
Yeah, so I injured my posterior cruciate ligament in my knee. I didn't rupture it, otherwise I would have needed to have surgery. I had quite a bad strain, so I ended up missing about 14 weeks of football. And at that stage, I was in my third year. I started my third year at the football club, and I hadn't played a game yet. Yeah, I thought my back was up against the wall a bit. We have a very good rehab staff with a few physios at the club there. Yeah, I knew that I couldn't dwell on what had happened in the past, and I could only look forward to what was in front of me. I did all my rehab, and it saw, after playing 4 games in the reserves, I got my first game in AFL. But yeah, it was quite scary because, well, I obviously hadn't played a game. I hadn't proven myself. I was out of contract at the football club. So all these thoughts do go through your head whilst you're not playing, and you get to see the guys that are playing in your position every weekend. Yeah, I did face those thoughts at the time. Yeah, it obviously didn't faze me too much because I got back out there. There's nothing better after spending a bit of time on the sideline, getting back out and playing the game that you love.
And it sounds like you got back out there and proved yourself pretty quickly after.
Yeah, that's right. I was quite a lot. I still am a lightly framed guy compared to some of my teammates. I was even more behind the 8 ball back then when I first got injured. I couldn't do much running and not too many exercises on my legs. Just stuck in the gym doing some upper body weights, and that held me in good stead when I came back. I felt more confident on the footy field. Mix it with the older guys. Yeah, I felt I took that confidence into playing on the football field.
And Rory, you said that you had a team that helped you with the rehabilitation. What did that look like?
Yeah, that's right. So we have a big fitness staff at the club, headed by our head of fitness. Under him, you've got fitness coaches, which run us through all our fitness training. You've got GPS monitors that are also in line with the fitness coaches. They spend more time looking at our GPS numbers because we get monitored in all the training we do to manage our workloads. We've got a team doctor who consults with all of those, and we've also got a team of physios. We have one that specifies in rehabilitation, so our game being so demanding and strenuous, we get injured a lot. So he's got his hands cut out there, and we've also got another 3 full-time physios that are always making sure that we're doing our little strengthening exercises and keeping us out on the park with treatment and massage and stuff like that.
Well, it sounds like a big team.
Yeah, that's right, because we are a big sport, and we also have, there's 45 players on a list, so they need to have enough to cater for all of us. There can't be only 1 or 2 guys getting some treatment a week. We all need to be able to access something if we need it.
You mentioned there was a couple of people that looked after your GPS numbers. Can you give us a bit more of a rundown of what your GPS numbers are and how that is tracked?
Yeah, so in our game of football, there's 3 different types of positions. You got your forward, you got your defenders, and you got your midfielders. And traditionally, your midfielders run the most. So in a game that goes for 2 hours, we'll run about 14 to 15 kilometres. Yeah, they need to monitor everything we do because they gather all this data, and if they can see that from a number of weeks, this player's output's down as opposed to other previous weeks, then even the player inside himself may not feel any worse off. His body may be telling him something due to the results. So they monitor all this stuff quite closely, and what speed we get up to and how frequently we reach that speed. So they pick the eyes out of all these numbers that they get. Yeah, they're usually right most of the time if the numbers show up that a player needs a rest or just needs a training session off to get himself back to 100%.
So do you constantly get feedback then on those numbers?
Yeah, we do. So due to an injury prevention cause, we need to get up to a certain speed each training session because, as they say, it's beneficial for hamstring tears. So we need to expose ourselves each week to a certain percentage of speed. I think it's 95% of our maximum velocity. So they give us regular feedback throughout training to let us know whether we've got that or not. If we haven't, you've got to stay out there and do a few extra strides to make sure you get it. they're crucial. They don't want us during the week not getting up to that high speed. And then when we get out there on a game, someone going to take off and running as quick as they can if they haven't done that in a while, because it usually leads to injury.
So it seems like they spend a fair bit of time in injury prevention and caring about your health in that respect. What percentage of your training involves mobility and strength?
We do have a few different types of training. We have our on-field training, which we need to incorporate due to that's probably our most important part. We need to touch the footballs. We need to practice our skill work. We need to run around out on the ground and practice the way we play and our game plan. But then we also have our strength and conditioning, which in season we'll do one lower body session a week, which entails our squats and our deadlifts and all those type of things, and one upper body session a week, which is our bench press and stuff. Because in season, no matter how hard the games are, it's always based around recovery earlier in the week, because we pull up pretty sore. We push our bodies to the limit on the weekend. So the first 3 to 4 days of the week is based on recovery. Yeah, we do have a strong team in place. So we also have cross training. If guys can't spend too much time on their legs because they're still sore, they'll either do a session in the pool or on the elliptical machine or on the bike. So there are different methods that we do to train at the club.
Right. So can you talk us through a typical week, say, for a professional football player like yourself, including recovery and, say, including your strength and conditioning versus your recoveries versus your cross training? How does it all look in a week?
Yeah, so say a player's not to get injured on the weekend and they're feeling quite fresh, we'll play on the weekend, so that'll be on a Saturday. Sunday, we come into the club in the morning and we'll do some mobility. We'll have a light stretch, but a lot of the guys can barely move the morning after a game, so we'll do a bit of mobility in the pool, and then we'll also get in the ice bath, recover to stop any bleeding that we've got in our muscles from the game. Then we head home after that. The rest of the day is just rest. And then, so from a Monday, we start to get the body moving again. We'll go on a light jog that goes for about 15 minutes, and we'll get the footballs out again so we don't lose our touch. And then we have meetings. We'll have a lightweight session, a light upper body session on that Monday because the guys are still pretty sore. And then Tuesday, we'll have a skill session that entails more football work. We haven't done any fitness stuff yet. And then it's still recovery focused. So we've got to get in the ice baths again for about another 10 to 15 minutes to make sure we're feeling right for the main training session, which is on the Wednesday. That'll entail some agility work, some speed work. We'll do a bit of conditioning, and then we'll also do some more intense football drills that lengthen out over the whole ground. So then we will do that and then go to our key lift for the week, which is our leg weights. The rest of the week, it's actually quite light because we're just getting ready for the game. It's usually meetings. We'll have another light run, another light skill session to take us into game day. In season, there's not a whole lot of intense training that can go on because it's all about feeling as good as you can for the game on the weekend and also recovering as good as you can.
So Wednesday might be your toughest day then with the strength and conditioning on the legs.
Yeah, we'll do our main session and then guys pull up pretty sore from that because we, as I said earlier, we still need to get our speed and we're doing our agility, but then we'll come inside, have lunch and recover for an hour or two, and then we'll hit the gym again and get stuck into our leg weights.
And so with the weight sessions, do you train as a group or is it individual programs?
There are individual programs. So there's 45 of us on a list. So we can't all go through the gym at a single time. So we're split into 3 groups. So because the players on our list average from a range of 33 years old to 18 years old, well, obviously some guys that have been doing weights for an extra 15 years. So they're a lot stronger than these 18-year-old boys that come into the system. So they're doing different exercises that are more technique focused. So hopefully they stay in the system for that long, and then come the age of 28 to 30 that they're lifting a heavier weight. So there's guys who have certain tendon issues that can't do certain exercises that other guys can. So I know I'm in that category. So I don't do any squats and stuff. I do certain exercises to strengthen the same muscles, but just on a different machine. So the strength coaches there, they have their work cut out because they've got to tailor 45 individual programs for guys who have certain deficiencies and need to work on other stuff.
And so do those strength coaches or even the physios join you in those sessions?
The physios do not, but the strength coaches are always in there making sure that we're doing the exercises right and guys aren't throwing their back out and stuff like that, because sometimes the guys try to impress each other and try to lift a bit too heavy.
I was going to ask you about that. So what generally are you working on? Obviously strength, but what sort of weights are you doing? Heavy, low reps, or what do the sets look like?
In season, it's usually just about maintenance and maintaining our strength. So we don't want to do anything that's going to make us sore. So there's no point doing a big weight session, weight that you haven't done before on a Wednesday, and then carrying some DOMs into the game on the weekend. So, yeah, we'll do 3 sets of 4 or 5 squats or deadlifts, and then there's other little intricate hamstring exercises that we do and stuff like that don't make you pull up too sore, but they're working the muscles that our strength coaches want us to work.
But generally your squats and your deadlifts are pretty heavy if you're only doing, say, 3 or 4 reps.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, well, heavy for us. We can't be too big or too strong. Otherwise, we won't be able to cover the ground, because I think out of most of the sports, or the field sports and the court sports in the world, I think we run the furthest. So we can't be too heavy, but it's about being strong. Some of the bigger guys may do 120 kilo squats. That's pretty easy. But someone like myself, a midfielder, would do about 80 to 90 kilos.
Okay, and so then what does mobility and stretching look like? You mentioned on a Sunday you'll try and stretch, but obviously it's pretty tough after the game. Are there any other days or times where you might do a mobility session or a yoga session or anything like that?
Yeah, we do yoga. So us guys doing a fair bit of weights, we're not too flexible. So it's quite funny when we all do our yoga session, because half the guys can't move at all. I don't even know half the names of the yoga stretches that we do, but yeah, we all seem to be in a bit of pain when we do it. But after it, we feel very good. We feel very limber. And
I imagine you're all competing against each other in yoga as well?
Yeah, that's right. There's some guys who are very flexible, but others can't. We kind of just get stuck into each other a little bit, saying, come on, mate, give it a crack, because I can do this and you can't.
So it sounds like your team of, say, the fitness coach, the GPS guys, the team doctor, the physios, sounds like a fairly big team. Is there anyone sort of that takes care of your nutrition?
Yeah, we do have a nutritionist. Her name is Bree. So she is currently doing her uni degree. So she comes in and writes out individual meal plans for us, because everyone has different goals. You've got your guys who are heavier that weigh about 105 kilos that don't need to put any more weight on. If anything, they need to strip some off. And you've got your 18-year-old guys that come into the system that need to put on 15 kilos. So everyone sits down with her about once a month. She just goes through the roster, and then, yeah, they tailor out their own specific meal plan.
Okay. And how strictly do the team stick to that meal plan?
I'm sure the guys who really need to put on weight and the guys who struggle to keep the weight off follow it quite closely. So there's guys like myself that use our common sense, that if you see something that you think's bad for you, the majority of the time it's going to be bad for you. So yeah, we just use common sense and stick to the easy stuff like our steak and veggies, and day before training we eat carbs and stuff like that. So we try to limit the amount of alcohol we intake, because as we know, that hinders our recovery, and also it's an easy way to put on weight. So that's the main thing. They go, because they know that after a weekend we want to let off a bit of steam and want to have a few drinks with the guys. But that's probably the main thing that they say, try and limit the alcohol intake, and yeah, just try not to eat anything that you think's bad for you.
And what about blood work and supplements and that sort of more in depth? You mentioned you've got a team doctor. Do you go through regular testing?
Well, we don't get any blood tests, but with what's going on with the AFL in the past, we need to fill out a form that we tell the AFL what we've taken throughout the week. So what supplements we've taken and whether we've had any injections or medication and stuff like that, just so nothing goes under the radar. So the doctors are pretty good with that, and they batch test everything to make sure no one's taking any illegal stuff. So they run everything through the eye of a microscope. So, yeah, it's quite well monitored at the club.
But in terms of just general levels of vitamins and hormone levels and that sort of thing, that's not measured very regularly?
No, not really. If the doctor seems to see that someone's got a low immune system or keeps getting sick, that's when they may get a blood test. Not everyone gets one.
Okay. So in general then, it sounds like there's a good team of people that are looking after your health and fitness. Do you feel that people are sort of looking out for your longevity in terms of health and fitness?
Yeah, I do. There have been a few guys that, due to us playing in a contact sport, that have been told that they shouldn't play any longer because due to the amount of concussions they've got. So the doctors and the fitness staff are player focused. They're going to do everything that's right for the player, whether that be sometimes they have to make the hard call and tell a player that, look, for your health later in life, it's better that you don't play football, because if you're to do your knee again, or if your legs to break in the same spot or something, then you may not be able to walk, or they're the worst case scenarios. yeah, they are all quite caring in that regard, and they make the professional call.
You must see that happen from time to time where you've got even a young player, he gets injured and just has to retire early. Has that happened to any of your friends, or does that seem to happen a bit in the sport?
Yeah, well, one of our teammates last year had to retire due to the amount of concussions that he'd sustained, and he was 25, I think, so that's still quite young in football years. So, yeah, it actually happened to one of our own. Yeah, it wasn't a great thing for him. I'm sure he's going to be better off later down the track.
Well, he'll still have a brain, so that'll be good.
Yeah, that's right. He won't be a vegetable.
So you're still young, almost 23, I believe.
Yeah.
So do you think about where to from here and how long your professional career will last?
Yeah, I do. So I think, the way our game is now and how much of a toll it takes on the body, I think you've done a good job to have a career till you're about 30 years old. So hopefully you get to there. So that's another 6-7 years away. Yeah, the club is quite focused on what players are going to do after football. So there's a lot of us that partake in part-time university work. I myself am doing a advanced diploma in business, which helps if I'm to go to university and do a business course. So, yeah, we're setting up all these little things in place that hopefully over the next 6 or 7 years that my football career lasts for, that I slowly chip away at. Come the time football's finished, it's not as hard to get a job or a qualification to then get a job.
So, Rory, undoubtedly your team is super fit. Would you say that most of the players are also quite healthy?
Yeah, I would. Due to how tolling the game is now, we need to get our sleep, we need to eat right. You need to give yourself and your body the best opportunity to perform, because the way the game's going is that if you're that 5 to 10% off on any given training day or game day is obviously the most important day. So that is when you want to be feeling 100%. So I think some of the guys who don't take all the little steps on and off the field in their preparation, it ends up catching up with them, and they can't perform to the same level as some of these elite players do in our game.
And I know you guys are all very competitive and you do compete in the gym, as you said. Do you have any tracking system that tracks on a daily basis how much sleep you've had, what sort of nutrition you've had, or anything along those lines?
There are a few guys who go to the next level with their diets that do keep food diaries. And we have had studies where some guys need to wear a wristband for a week straight and it monitors how often they sleep. Nothing all the time. There's just little certain things that go through the club every now and again that they want us to try. So they instill good confidence in us, make sure we'll do the right thing, because at the end of the day, it's our career.
Excellent. So there's no sort of sleep measuring at this stage?
No. We don't do any sleep monitoring at this stage, no.
Okay. Was there anything else, Rory, that you would, I guess, like to tell us something about being a professional AFL player that perhaps the general public out there just wouldn't know what it's like?
Well, it's great. I mean, I have the privilege to play the game that I grew up loving and still love for a job. Once you do get to this level of sport, though, it is quite tolling on the mental side of things. I mean, because it is my livelihood right now, it is my job, and I need to perform on the weekend. And if I don't, I have to wait another 7 days to prove myself again. And it's a fickle industry, so you got to be on your toes. And at the end of the day, these people that are running the clubs, it's a business and they're performance and result driven. So you do need to make sure you're on your game every weekend. So that's, a little bit about our game. And once you get from that level, from having fun to actually it being a job, then it's serious stuff.
So is it really a job, or do you feel like you're just living the dream?
Game day, it feels like I'm living the dream, but the other 6 days of the week, it is a job.
And is it full-time, Rory? Do you feel that, you mentioned your business studies as well, do you feel that it's quite tough to actually fit that in as well?
The football club allows us time to fit it in, but due to the way we're feeling after a game and just all the stuff that goes on at the club through the week, sometimes it can be quite an anxious workplace. So the last thing I really want to do is open a book or look at a computer screen. So the game does make it quite tough to do those things. We just have to put up with that, because at the end of the day, if someone gets injured and you can't play football again and you don't have those qualifications or you haven't started anything, then you are starting from a long way behind.
But one last question I wanted to ask you was about being a team player. We often interview people on the show that are athletes, and it often involves just relying on yourself and your own motivation. and it doesn't really require teamwork. How do you find, you obviously spend a lot of time with the team. You do almost all your training with them by the sounds of it. How do you find that, and what difference does it make with someone who can really get along with people versus have you had experiences where maybe they can't?
Yeah, well, I myself tend to get along with everyone on the team, so it's great. We spend that much time together. It's just kind of, I walk into the club every day and it's just like I'm going to school again in the locker room. We just talk about the same sort of stuff, and every day I go to work and see 40 of my best mates. So it's good. I get along with all the guys, and you form, it's different. Like, it's hard to explain. I mean, we say we're going to war on the weekend on the football field, and you just form this close bond with all these teammates because you put in so much effort to get a result with them each week. Yeah, it just brings us all closer together. So, yeah, I myself love that aspect of the game. I don't think I could go to playing an individual sport now because I prefer to play for my teammates and my friends than myself. So, like, it's harder for someone who doesn't enjoy other people's company and wants to play for themselves. And I think on the football field, they stand out. So I think you need to learn to play for the team pretty quick. Just play your role, because if everyone does that, it ends up with us getting the result on the weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And look, Rory, one other question that we like to ask all our guests on the show. Do you have a tattoo?
No tattoos. I've thought about it a couple of times, but no, I just haven't gone with it. Not too many people in our change room, have tattoos. I didn't want to be the odd one out and go get one.
Interesting. Excellent. Well, thanks for that. And thank you for coming on the show. And we'll be tracking your success, even if our listeners didn't know what AFL was, they do now. So thank you for that, and good luck with your career.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For all the resources and show notes from today's episode, please go to www.ali.fitness. If you liked today's episode, please show your appreciation by going to iTunes, give us a 5-star review and subscribe.